Welcome to the SkillTorch Disrupt Podcast, where we dive into the world of technology and innovation. I'm your host, Malika Moshiri, and today we have a podcast episode called Business Intelligence to Superintelligence, AI's Productivity and Trustworthiness. So before we dive in deep into this, just want to tell you a bit more about SkillTorch and what we do. So SkillTorch is a recruitment provider in the AI, machine learning, ad tech and gaming industries across the US and Europe. Now, moving on, today I have a special guest with us, Kartik Money, who is the VP of Product at Reconstruct. Kartik and I actually met in Orange County in California a few weeks back. Really enjoyed meeting with him, and he decided to agree to jump on this podcast today. So what Business Intelligence to Superintelligence is going to be all about is about how AI stops becoming a complement and makes decision for us. So I'll have Kartik explain that to us, what that really means. So Kartik, please tell us, our audience, a bit more about what you've done and who you are.
Absolutely. Thanks, Malika, for having me on this podcast. So I'm Kartik. I run product and engineering at a Series B startup called Reconstruct. We build B2B SaaS software for the construction industry. Which for anyone that is familiar with the construction industry is one that is in desperate need of disruption. It's an age-old industry that is still very, very heavily reliant on old practices and old technologies. You'll be surprised to hear that most construction companies only use Excel and Word to communicate and manage projects, and we're looking to disrupt that. So what we build is software that essentially leverages AI and computer vision to generate 3D models of your construction site while it's being built. We basically ingest images and video. We build these beautiful 3D models. We overlay that on top of designs, and we're able to tell you very quickly what is there versus what's supposed to be there at any given point in time. The AI that we use really is in essentially reconstructing, hence the name Reconstruct. And I'm actually wearing my Reconstruct shirt here, so just a little shameless plug for. But yeah, we essentially reconstruct reality, and we create what is known as a digital twin. And you'll hear the term digital twin being used across a variety of industries, but in the construction space, we refer to a digital twin as a digital visual representation of a construction site. And that is ultimately what we deliver to our customers. And they're able to very quickly tell you if their construction project, or they're able to quickly figure out if their construction project is on time, which is a very important consideration because 90% of all construction projects are delayed due to some issue on the site. And the other thing that we're able to also tell our customers is where there are issues, right? So if there's an HVAC duct in a particular part of the building that's off by a few feet, or there's what are known as clashes, right? Where something was supposed to be built, but there's something else that's sort of blocking where like a sprinkler system was supposed to be built. We're able to detect that, and very early on in the construction process, surface that to customers and make them aware of this risk before they spend millions of dollars in construction that they have to completely rip out and redo their construction project. So a lot of really great applications of computer vision in a space that really needs it. And yeah.
Thanks for that overview with regards to what Reconstruct does, especially within the construction industry. Your background hasn't always been in construction, has it? You've worked at the likes of Disney, CoreLogic, and Toyota. Tell us a bit more about what you did at those companies and what made you take that shift from those industries into construction.
Yeah, I have about 25 years in the industry. I worked at companies like Disney. At Disney, a lot of what my team was focused on was hyper personalization. Disney, as you know, is a completely customer obsessed company. And what differentiates them from other entertainment behemoths, you have Universal, you have Disney, you have a lot of different players in the space, is they really focus on you as a
Mm.
guest at Disney, which means that when you walk in through the gates of or through the turnstiles at a Disney park, um, the company is making every attempt to ensure that you have the best possible experience. And in order to do that, the company needs to know everything about you, right? They need to know, um, who you are, what you like, who's in your family, so the party that you're bringing in, where you like to shop, what you like to eat, what attractions you're interested in, how many times you like to ride those attractions, what's your optimal path through the park. Like if you're coming into the park, do you like to ride certain attractions first before you move on to other attractions? So it's really interesting when Disney essentially started to put a lot of sort of their investment into personalization because um, if you think about Disney as a business, it's a very
Mm.
capital intensive business, because it
Yeah.
costs a lot of money to run these parks and run hotels and whatnot. So um, just admission alone doesn't really cut it in terms of profitability, right? So um, in the I would say early 2000s, mid 2010 time frame, Disney decided to put a lot of investment into what they call the Magic Band, which is essentially a band that you wear on your wrist. It's been deployed in the Florida parks, essentially where they use that band to essentially manage everything from when you get admitted into the park all the way through, where you are and what you're doing. And and that essentially builds this sort of 360-degree view of who you are and
Mm.
creates the ability for Disney to tailor experiences for you based on what it is you're in the park for, right? Whether you're celebrating a birthday or an anniversary, or you're, or you're just there with a bunch of friends enjoying, a summer break or whatever. Whatever it is, Disney knows what you're in there for, and they're able to curate an experience that is uniquely yours. And that is only possible through hyper personalization. And the more you interact with Disney merchandise, Disney systems, etc., the more they're able to kind of know who you are and tailor experience that are more suited to your needs. So that's Disney. Moving on to Toyota. At Toyota, I was more or less focused on creating creating more intelligent systems that would improve the way in which um, cars were sold. As you know, Toyota is one of the leading car manufacturers in
Yeah.
in the world, and they're also running into a lot of competition because you have the likes of Tesla and the EV revolution that is upon us, and Toyota has to compete. And um, what they have had going for them, as you know, Toyota is a very operations obsessed company. You will hear terms like Kaizen, and they all originated from Toyota manufacturing, which is legendary, right? But in this age of innovation, Toyota has really had to reprioritize its focus on manufacturing excellence into the realm of using AI and customer insights to drive product, and drive product forward, right? So,
Hmm.
what happened when I was at Toyota was there was an increased focus on what Toyota termed telematics, which is basically a whole host of connected technologies that would enable cars on the road to be connected to a centralized server that feeds it information about everything from who you are as a driver, your driving habits, the places that you like to go to, and really constructs a system that tailors itself to you as an individual driver, right? And others
Mm.
like you who are driving cars, right? So, um, So in that regard, while I wouldn't quite characterize what Toyota did as hyper personalization, the connected and nature of cars is something that I think Toyota has really made a lot of great strides on. And I would say, again, there's a lot of AI involved in that, and we often hear about AI in a number of different contexts, but
Yeah.
when you think about AI specifically as it relates to all of these very established companies and what they do, it's amazing to see that AI has always sort of crept itself in some way, shape, or form with these companies. At CoreLogic, where CoreLogic, for those of you that don't know, is the largest distributor of property data in the United States. Um, it, One thing that is really unique about CoreLogic is CoreLogic works with state and local county departments that are in various stages of technology evolution, right? In some counties, you go to get property records. The most that they'll have, if you're lucky, is a big stack of papers that have scrawl on them, and you don't honestly even know how much intelligent information you're going to be able to extract from it. But at CoreLogic, they developed technology to essentially OCR all of this information in and really create structure from lack of structure, right? And then use the information that they gleaned from county and tax records and information from multiple listing services, MLSs, and other sources of data to really
Mm.
construct a 360-degree view of properties, right? So this allows anyone that is buying a property, or anyone that's interested in issuing a loan against a property or a policy against a property, to get a complete view of the property, not just the characteristics of the property or where it is or where it's located, the risk profile of the property, but also understand trends around transactions that have happened on the property in neighborhoods, right? So in this market, real estate is, as you know, one of the biggest topics of conversation in the
Yeah.
US. We are seeing a lot of very emotion-driven sales, right? Like people
We are.
buy properties because interest rates are going up, and because my friend bought a property down the street that has a swimming pool in it, and whatnot. Those trends need to be captured, and essentially the risk of having these properties be made available to people that aren't necessarily in a position to buy them. We if you recall the mortgage crisis of 2008, that was fueled largely by people that were in no position to buy large homes, but ended up over investing and oversubscribing. So right now, the importance of data to really connect the buyer with the home is very, very important, and that's what CoreLogic has been focused on. And again, when we talk about business intelligence, that's really what business intelligence is, right? Where AI serves as a complement to all of these things: personalization, creating a view of a customer or a business that enables that business to understand its customers better, understand itself better, and be able to move forward in incremental steps. So that's really what business intelligence is. So hopefully, I know it was a little long-winded, but hopefully gives you a little bit of a flavor of kind of where I've been and how I've been involved with AI.
Yeah, no, you've worked across quite a few interesting industries, and you've worked, quite a bit around personalization in the housing market. I think a few of these are very relevant subjects that a lot of us are thinking about today in our day-to-day lives. I think what's interesting to me, what you talked about the property market specifically, is around the current housing situation we're in right now. I do agree with you. I think quite a lot of it is emotionally driven. Talking about the super intelligence aspects that we did discuss, right at the beginning, and what this podcast is about. How do you feel that AI is going to help with improving or predicting prices, or what's going to happen within the housing market today?
Yeah, so a lot of it is driven by a number of different factors, right? In terms of being able to predict, what is going to happen, a lot of the information that companies like CoreLogic and First American rely on is historical information, which, as
Mm.
we all know, history, um, it sometimes repeats itself. In many cases,
Yeah.
it doesn't. Right now, we're seeing a very unprecedented shift in the housing market in the sense that there is uh, a really, really large uptick in demand, and
Yeah, I
we're in
saw.
a pretty supply constrained market, right? Where supply is, it's not necessarily true that there is no supply available. It is that the supply has been intentionally constrained, right? Because suppliers are sort of driving up, suppliers are holding back to drive up demand because, people are willing to pay right now. And and they're also being vetted by financial institutions. So, in terms of where artificial intelligence can turn into super intelligence, it's really largely taking the human elements out of decision making that ultimately will turn artificial intelligence into something where a human in the loop is increasingly not required, right? So I would say in the case of housing, um, one area where there's been a lot of work is in valuations, right? So we oftentimes rely on an appraiser to go out to a house
Yeah.
and review and view the house and basically make notes and essentially use a mathematical formula to value the house, and that also is to some extent dictated by what is known as performance data, which is what are houses around me selling for, right? Today, that those valuations can be computed through computer vision, through AI that basically is analyzing large swaths of data and also correcting for more recent trends, right? So it's not just averaging across, you know, 20 or 30 years worth of data, but it's also looking at what's happening more recently and sort of correcting for that. So, we can see in the future, um, essentially, platforms where there's really there's no mediator, right? There's not like an
Mm.
agent that is sitting there facilitating a sale, a buyer seller transaction, right?
So you mean there'll be
Um,
no realtors,
when
or there will still be realtors?
there's it's conceivable, right? There are lots of platforms that are starting to spring up where they're basically completely run by technology companies that
Like
are
Redfin?
building, yeah, like a la Redfin. There are, companies like Open Door, and others that essentially are taking the real estate, like the realtor out of the transaction and are really facilitating a much more direct conversation between the buyer and the seller. And a lot of the what the buyer is able to essentially determine from this platform is whether or not they're getting the best deal for what it is that they want to spend, right? And even the decision on whether or not they qualify for that deal from a loan perspective, even that is now being completely automated. It's no longer in the realm of an actual person underwriting a loan. It is also starting to slowly turn into a much more automated sort of transaction, right? As opposed to a human underwriter going in and saying, okay, um, you know, this property has these risks. This individual borrower has these risks.
Mm.
And based on my assessment of the borrower and the property, I think that they're a good match, and therefore I can go ahead and proceed with underwriting this loan. Um, that human in the loop process is increasingly being abstracted out. And CoreLogic has made a lot of investments in that decision because ultimately, finding a home, no problem. Everybody's doing that. How do you get from there to the next step in the process, which is where a decision is made and the transaction becomes real? That is where there's a lot of innovation happening. And quite frankly, that's where the super intelligence part of AI can really start to play a bigger role, right? The more AI, the more you're able to trust the AI to do what you want it to do, the more you can rely on it making those decisions for you. So that's ultimately the direction that I think AI is going to go. You're already starting to see some of it play out with generative AI. I was just reading recently that with generative AI, entire industries are being essentially they are a threat for extinction, right?
Yeah.
I was reading a statistic that I don't know if you've heard of this company, Chegg. It's an education,
Yes. Yeah.
it
Yeah. Yeah.
provide, yeah, they've lost 82% of their revenue because
Wow.
generative AI is now providing solutions for so people I could have my seventh grader go to ChatGPT and find answers for any question that he has. So that is sort of the progression that we're on with AI, and there could be a point where AI is not just, like I said, complementing what we do, but is eventually starting to make decisions, right? So it could be, those decisions could start with very simple things like, hey, is this person qualified to you know to join a job, right? Like where I mean, again, not to say that your job is at risk or anything like that, but I'm just
I
saying,
hope not.
eventually AI could one area where I could see this becoming a reality is AI could take over the recruitment process, right? AI could take over the creative process. And AI could also start to, we're already hearing reports of AI essentially proctoring, or not proctoring, but passing the bar exam. And in some cases,
Mm.
we've heard, it passed, I think, the bar exam in Princeton, or I don't know which university, but um, AI could start proctoring, right? Like you could have AI basically going in, evaluating students, comparing it against what it knows is right or wrong, and if faculty trust the AI enough to proctor an exam and actually um, you know grade the exam, AI might be taking over that piece of it as well, and that's where it gets into the realm of decision making, right? So you're now starting to see the shift, from recommendation engine complement to decision, and that's where there's a lot of excitement and there's also a
Mm.
lot of fear. Uh, and
Yeah.
the fear is, what if it's the wrong decision, and what is the cost of a wrong decision? And so that's something that keeps me up at night all the time as well, especially with the way the industry is evolving right now.
Yeah, and I'll comment on with regards to where some of the jobs might be replaced by AI, and particularly in recruitment. So, within our industry, we do talk a lot about this, about wherever it's going to replace our jobs. I think some people think it is, some people think it isn't. My opinion on this is that there are certain processes within recruitment that will be replaced. So, one of the ones is that when we are sending outreaches to potential candidates or even clients, a lot of that stuff can be automated and we are automating this a lot easier than we did a few years ago. I remember when I started in recruitment, I had to send a message one by one, or even making 120 cold calls a day. That doesn't happen so much anymore. So I do feel like a lot of that stuff around the sourcing aspect may eventually be replaced with AI. But what I feel will happen, I don't feel that recruitment will disappear within the industry and be completely replaced by AI, because when it comes to introducing a company to a candidate and what that culture of that company is about, in addition to that, pre-closing the candidate, negotiating the offer, educating the candidate on why they should not accept a counteroffer, that a lot of that is emotionally driven. And I feel that with the likes of ChatGPT and generative AI, in my opinion, there's no emotion behind it. There's facts behind it, but there is no emotion behind it. And a lot of the data is collected by the information that we're putting into the likes of ChatGPT. So
Yeah,
that
no,
comes,
and
yeah, go on.
that's a really good point. That's a really good point. I mean, again, when we're talking about the emergence of super intelligence, I mean, it's still very theoretical at this point.
Yeah.
Um, we're still working through what the possibilities are, right? I don't think that
Mm,
um, I think when you hear experts talk about responsible AI, the godfather of AI quit Google for this very reason, right? Because um, responsible AI, it comes in many flavors, right? I mean, it's how much of how much of the of all of these different functions in the industry do you want AI to replace? It's what you want AI to replace versus
mm,
um, what AI will eventually end up replacing, right?
yeah.
Which, there's what should be done versus what must be done, right? So I I think that there is a lot of conversation happening right now in the industry about safeguards, guardrails that are built into AI to ensure that we don't let AI proliferate and start uh, essentially taking over, right? There's talk of AI becoming sentient AI and things like that, which um, paint a very dystopian view of AI. But I would say, at this point, my view is we are going to be walking a fine line between AI continuing to serve as a complement um, in many cases, and where it makes sense, enabling AI to start making decisions, but there is definitely still going to be a human in the loop, and that human in the loop aspect where AI is still there's still a human that can veto the decision at some point. I think that that's still probably going to exist for the foreseeable future. So I would say we are in we're going through another renaissance right now on the AI front, and who's to say what the future holds? But I know that I'm very excited about where we're going, and I'm excited about the possibilities that we have in front of us. We've been, with an industry as age old as construction, we're already starting to see where AI has really, disrupted and made the experience better. And I hope we continue to see more positive developments with AI as we move forward.
Yeah, we're in for exciting times, and I do feel that with the future of AI, I think one thing that is quite clear is that it is making our, jobs much more efficient and it is saving us time. So I think that's a positive that is coming out of it. You've worked with teams, right? You've worked in, within various engineering capacities, and you've worked alongside those who are responsible for cleansing and acquiring data. What are your thoughts in terms of the challenges surrounding the cleansing of data and the accuracy of that data within AI applications?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. Data is, as much as data is not sexy, it is at the heart of generative AI and all of the AI tools that you're seeing right now. I mean, your AI is only going to be as good as the data that you feed it,
Yeah.
and data, and it's not just any data. It's high quality data. It's highly diverse data, right? So you have data currency, you have data quality, and you have data diversity. Three things, and and all of those three things together when you feed it into the AI, because ultimately for the AI to be effective, it needs to be trained, and it needs to be trained continually, right? So you you feed it a data set, and then you train it over that data set over a period of time. Then you feed it more data, and essentially as the AI learns, it becomes more effective. As you've seen with ChatGPT when it first rolled out, it was it wasn't always very accurate. But now if you look
Mm.
at ChatGPT 4, the data set that ChatGPT 4 uses is a much more refined data set, and that's essentially the difference between the two. Um, in the case of uh, data itself, I mean, I can give you an example like CoreLogic. CoreLogic is a very data intensive business, right? And data comes to CoreLogic in many forms, right? There's unstructured data, like I said, you go to your state and local county recorder's office and basically pull property records. And if you're lucky, and if you live in a city, you might find you know a, a county recorder that has digital records.
Mm.
If you go to a much more rural part of town, you'd be lucky if they even had proper records to begin with. But if they did, it was all in paper. So being able to first bring this data into the ecosystem in and of itself is a really big effort. So part of building an AI ecosystem involves building effective collectors for data. So building a collector for unstructured data, building a collector for structured data that could be in the form of digital records, and then building collectors for other forms of data that are they're non, I guess, structured in the sense that they're visual. Like, hey, can I now look at a set of images and glean any information about a property from those images? Can I, you know, go to social media and find information about what people are saying about a particular property? Can I go to, can I also look for non-traditional sources of information about the data? Like, for example, we have companies like Home Depot and, furniture companies that essentially offer um, AR tools to visualize your home
Oh, they
with
do?
their
Oh,
furniture in your home. Yeah, there's a lot of companies that are starting to do that. They're if it's pretty common. I don't know if you've heard of a company called House. They're based here in
yep.
Southern California. Their main value prop is they will let you design your space with furniture recommendations that they provide on their website. And basically, you can visualize your space with with a lamp from a particular manufacturer, with a couch from another manufacturer, and whatnot, and see it all in one space. So that can be a source of information because now you can tell from those types of images or whatnot, if you elect to buy that information from these providers, what the condition of your home is, what the condition of a particular space in your home is, and things like that, which is all very valuable, right? Because ultimately all of this then gets fed into a system that, or into an algorithm that is basically going in and continually valuing your home, right? And saying, okay, this home is valued at X because of these things that we learned about the
Mm.
home. And then you add in the emotional data, and then you add in the trending data, you add in your comps. You now have this unprecedented view of a home through 20 or 30 different lenses, right? Which is something that didn't exist before, right? And
Yeah.
so your ability to adjust and fine tune your home's value, and also it's not even really the home's value, but it's the valuation that the underwriter, who is basically saying this is what the home is worth, what the loan is worth, because at the end of the day, when it's your home gets sold for a certain price, or it gets listed for a certain
Yeah.
price, and then there is what the home is actually worth, right? And in many cases, the loan is basically issued on what the home is worth and not on what it's listed for. So there may be a delta sometimes, right? Because if let's say your home appraises for 100,000, but it's listed at 150,000, you're responsible for that 50,000. Now, as a buyer, are you prepared to pay that 50,000, or would you rather go and shop for another house? So it's very, very important to have the most accurate view for an underwriter
Mm.
that is built based off of a lot of different factors. And today we're in a position where that confluence of data from all of these different sources gets you that view. And that's increasingly becoming important in a lot of different industries. In construction, we rely on a corpus of images and videos of construction sites. And you marry that data with data that is that people report when they're on the construction project, oh, I noticed this, or this particular slab was placed incorrectly, or this HVAC duct wasn't, is at the wrong angle, or this rebar was not positioned in the right way. All of that is those are all little inputs, and then you layer on IoT on top of that, which is the big new thing right now.
Buzzword.
Big,
Yeah.
yeah. Everybody wants to invest in sensors that check if your window is open, what your temperature is, how much power you're consuming, cameras in the house that show what is going on. If you tap into all of that, I mean, the data is available. I mean, there's droves and droves of data available, and you just need to know how to find it, how to mine it, what to make, what value extract from it, what is noise, what is value, and then feed that into the AI, and that's what's going to make the AI more effective. So your point about data and structured versus unstructured, and the use of data and the role of data in AI is it's extremely important, and they're almost symbiotic. I mean, AI can't exist without good data.
With that data we're putting in. Talking, going back to the ChatGPT case where you mentioned that with ChatGPT 4, the data is much more accurate than what it used to be. Didn't we just hear something a few days ago where a lawyer used ChatGPT in court, and the cases that they did provide in court were fake? Did you hear about that on the
Yes,
news?
yeah, that's an interesting. I read about that recently, and
Really negligent, quite hilarious at the same time.
it's very fascinating, right? Because at the end of the day, the ChatGPT is generative AI, right? Which means that it generates content that is plausible.
Mm.
So it generates arguments and reasoning that are plausible, but how much of that is rooted in fact versus fiction? Um, that is kind of, I mean, I don't know if they used it, the intent was correct or not, right? Did they say, hey, this, we need you to analyze this set of cases or whatever instead of conjuring your own case? I don't know. I mean, I feel like people are still discovering what generative AI can and cannot do. And this may have just been one of those things that they did it as an experiment and they found that that's not what generative AI or ChatGPT is intended for, right? I mean, you can't have it go and substitute a paralegal or a lawyer. I mean, we're not there yet. I mean, can it do it eventually? Probably, but
Mm.
I don't think it's there right now, right? Because what it is, what is ChatGPT doing? It's learning from a universe of cases that have, I mean, again, the data set is huge, right? So you've got ChatGPT learning about so many cases, how they were, what line of reasoning was used to, provide an adjudication on those cases, et cetera, et cetera. So it's entirely conceivable that they just basically used a case, replaced some names, came up with some fake names, fake witnesses and whatnot, and just completely fabricated something. So again, therein lies the danger, right? I mean, again, when you talk about this journey from business intelligence to super intelligence, the guardrails and the human in the loop absolutely are, at least at this stage, are still needed. You're not going to be able to, have AI make independent. Like I can't put AI on, as a judge or a juror just yet, or even a lawyer at this point. We're not there yet. So.
Do we think this gives a reason for the Senate or the government to look at whether they are going to regulate ChatGPT, and this being a factor in one of their? What do you think on that? I think we did talk about this in person, didn't we? Whether there is going to be
Yeah, I
regulation.
mean, the regulation has to come and it's inevitable. I think that there's gonna have to be regulation happening both within, I mean, it has to be a combination of private enterprise and government, right? I mean, I think the government first needs to gain a better understanding of what AI is. And, I think there's little bit of a tightrope to be walked here, right? In the sense that I think we don't, I don't think on the one side that companies necessarily want government to overstep and stifle innovation, which is entirely possible, right? Because, you know, governments can be gun shy and be very, very um, dystopian in their view of where generative AI can go and the risks that come with it.
Mm.
And you're already seeing a lot of these narratives. If you go on social media and LinkedIn and whatnot, you're already
Yeah.
hearing people talk about what you know, entire wars can be started, right? I mean, there's already talk. I was reading on CNN a few weeks ago about how there's this one ad that I think the Republican Party had put out where they were essentially painting a very, like I said, like a very, very dystopian sort of view of what the government would look like if Democrats were running it. So
Mm.
again, that it's very easy for a reality distortion field to be created with generative AI, right? So it's very important that we essentially enable um, through either through code or through you know, regulation or some combination of the two, a way to be able to separate fact from fiction. And again, you know, when in a society like today where, you know, we've increasingly become, you know, more and more um, I would say protective, and you know, there's a lot of division already in society. It's the last thing you want is for AI to start fueling that, right? So we want to make sure that there's a very clear distinction between what is real and what is not. And you know, your
Mm.
earlier point about the judgment, I mean, is very illustrative of that, right? Like we definitely don't want um, you know, AI to be unregulated and for content that really shouldn't be made public to be made public, right? And
Yeah.
or for AI to make decisions that it really isn't ready to make. So I think that there's discourse happening between both private and public enterprise as we speak, but you know, there's it's like an arms race, right? Like there's on the one side there's like this completely unchecked, like, oh, we're just going to move forward at all costs kind of innovation happening. There's startups, you know, I also happen to be an investor on the site, so I'm seeing this activity. I mean, there are, you know, Y Combinator startups, you know, everyone that breeds the word AI or puts the .ai in their domain name, inevitably will have at least 4 or 5 angel investors coming up to them and saying, "Hey, what can I do to, you know, get in on this investment?" Right? So there's that happening on the one side, and then there's this chorus of voices on the other side that's basically like, hey, we need to really think about what we're building here and make sure
Mm.
that we're not setting ourselves up for all of this dystopian future, right? So I feel as though, you know, both of this different sides have to sort of catch up with each other at some point, and I hope that that happens sooner rather than later, because you know, as excited as I am about AI, I also am very scared about what it can do if that unchecked AI revolution continues.
Yeah. Um, Definitely. Well, thank you so much, Kartik, for shedding light on the importance of trust and responsibilities of AI practices, and also your passion about AI. It's very clear, very passionate about the subjects, but also maybe some of your nervousness around it. You know, I feel the same as you around it. But it is something that we're all talking about to this day, even though AI has been around for many, many years. It's just that it's getting to our attention a lot more now, and I think it's really crucial for various industries to prioritize these aspects as AI continues to evolve. And I think, you know, I've learned quite a lot from this podcast today around how AI is stops becoming a compliment and is actually starting to make decisions for us. Before we actually end the podcast, is there anything else that you want to add, or perhaps how you want to summarize, you know, this episode today?
Yeah, I mean, I will say, you know, if you're an investor looking to invest in AI, or you're an operator or looking to work with AI, you know, I think, you know, we are seeing, I mean, now, I mean, there couldn't be a better time than now. I think
Mm.
it's wonderful to see, you know, the different ideas that are coming out and the different applications of AI in whether it's in, creation of content or, in various industries or like construction, or even in, medical applications. It's just amazing to see all of the different ideas that are out there and the different companies that are solving real world problems. So, I just think that, like I was saying earlier, I think we have to really strive to find that balance between AI at all costs versus doing something that humanity benefits from, because ultimately that's the goal is we want to enhance humanity. We want to create race of humans that are super efficient, that we where we take out all of the busy work and really focus on the one thing that differentiates us from animals, which is right up here. So we want to continue to get that brain augmented by AI as much as possible, but also just make sure that we're still using that part of our body, right? Our brain, because the more we can let AI take over the parts of our lives that you know that or I would say where we need to spend less time. I think we would be in a much better place, and let's not let it completely take over our lives. That's what I would say. So that's kind of my viewpoint on that. And again, I thank you for having me on this podcast.
No,
Hopefully
thank you. Thank you
was
for
helpful.
being an exceptional guest on this show. And again, I've learned quite a lot of things on this show today, and I'm sure many of our listeners will feel the same way. And it's been very interesting to hear more about your opinions and also your experience across many industries that you've worked at. So thank you so much again.